Hello, hello, hello. This is Thumbs United. Let's get started. I don't remember if we finished the championship we're supposed to be doing. I don't want the bucket list. I don't know. I think we're in a GTI. Not the rabbit. But it's been a busy week. I usually like to have these streams, like I'll post the podcast edition and YouTube edition on Monday. It's Wednesday when I'm recording this. So it's a little late, but the weather has been so perfect for droning that I've been doing that all the past week and a half. And so now, there's like a small snowstorm. So I figured I'd do some gaming, and then I'm recording a couple of tutorials. I already recorded one tutorial. I still have to make the text graphics and stuff for it, but it's about how to use AI and how to, run it in Python as a Python script. So that's done, and then I just have to post the code to GitHub. But like I said, I have to do the titles and stuff for it and the voiceover. I just screen recorded the installation process. But I've also, while I've been droning, I've been doing some cityscape photography with mostly medium format color film. So I'm going to record a tutorial on how to develop colored film at home and how it can save you money. So that's what I'm going to be doing after this. So I already have my photography gear not set up, but I've accumulated a pile where I'm going to film the tutorial. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to develop all the film I've taken. I've done 10 rolls of medium format. So that's 120 photos. Each roll of medium format only takes 12 photos, but they're huge fat photos. So that's why you can only take 12 of them on a roll. So today's gonna be a busy day. And then I was woken up early. I had no reason to wake up early today. I did most of the stuff I needed to do in the morning last night. But my dog wanted to go out. She's on her cycle. And she's looking for a boyfriend. She can't get out of our yard, but she does this thing where she like howls, and she's a Newfoundland, and like it's funny because it sounds like a whale. It's like, but so they sleep in the kitchen / TV room, and then I have my room. It's all on one floor, and so I close my door. And that is the other thing. I've been having like panic attacks at night, but that's a whole nother story. I'll tell that soon. But before I could hear her, kind of put the nose under the door. So I was like, I know you're there. Like you can feel like somebody's watching you. And there's her nose at the bottom of the door. And she's a rescue, but she does this thing where she's almost like a telepath, because she will just stare at things like deep into their soul. Like she'll stare at a squirrel in a tree, and she just sits and watches it, and you can tell she's like she's doing the power of intention. She's visualizing the squirrel falling out of the tree, and so she can eat it or something. Like, she's really concentrating. And so I kind of felt like she was like really concentrating under the door. I was like, oh, I'm gonna sleep in. So that's what it's been like all week. She wakes up at like 3 in the morning and she's like, I want to go out. I'm like, no, you're not going out at 3. But now she started howling. And so now she howls at the door. It's like, I can't ignore that. And so I try, and then it's like maybe 2 hours of me pretending I can't hear her. Because I'm trying, it's a question of who's training who. Am I training her or is she training me to do what she wants? And the answer is she's mostly training me. But so at 5 I decide, okay, it's late enough for you to go out, 5 a.m. And so I let her out. She goes to the restroom and stuff and howls a little bit. And then she comes back in. And I think, oh good, so then I go back to bed. And she literally starts howling like 30 minutes later that she wants to go back out. And I'm like, no. So that was this morning. And I finally gave up around 8 a.m. and I was like, I'm getting out of bed. Even though I cleared everything to sleep in. What? Championship's done. But no, so the panic attacks, well, it's not quite panic attacks, it's just like, I don't know. It's like being triggered instantly. But so I'm falling asleep, and the house I used to live in before, it didn't have HVAC system. So every time the heater turns on, it like jolts me awake. I'm like, what the heck is that? And I jump out of my skin, and then I try to calm down and go back to sleep. So I finally got used to that, and I started sleeping deeper to where it didn't affect me. But this whole week has been difficult because I have been sleeping very lightly. And so like I thought someone broke into the house the other day, but it turned out my dog just flipped over the trash can. Not to get what was in the trash can, but just because she wanted to chew on the little bathroom trash can. And so I was like, oh my goodness, everything's giving me a heart attack. And the other issue, which is the reason why I think I'm sleeping lighter, is 1, I'm watching the dogs, and 2, one of my dogs is very old, like really old for a Newfoundland. She's 11. So that's like a scary age, because usually if your Newf reaches 10, that's a miracle. And so she's past that. And she's lost most of her vision, so I'm always keeping an ear out for her. So that's kind of like why I'm stressed at night. And then the other thing is that I just bought this car. I don't know how much is in there. And the other thing is I've been having problems with the food I've been eating. Like everything. Like now I just didn't tell my family, I'm stroking out. And so when I say that, it's not really like a headache. It's not very painful, but it's pretty debilitating where like light and everything gets really sensitive. It gets difficult for me to see or for my eyes to focus. And so like light and motion actually makes my head feel like it's spinning. And sometimes it feels like I'm having a seizure. So that was happening pretty daily, and I couldn't figure out what it was. Because a lot of it is food-based. That starts... It's probably what we think it is it's a migraine with aura, but just no pain, it's just the aura. And so that's when your visual cortex starts to like freak out. And they say there's like some kind of brain waves that go awry across the visual cortex, and that's why you get vision problems, you can lose your vision. You get like squiggly lines, or in my case, I get like spots in my vision, usually colorful spots. So that's been happening every night, and I was like, okay, so what am I eating? So I think what it was is this aged cheddar I was eating. I make this macaroni and cheese, where it's kind of saucy. And so what it is it's like 4 tablespoons of butter. You melt that, and then I can't eat gluten, so I use gluten-free flour. And so you put 3 tablespoons of gluten-free powder in, and then you mix it up as you're heating the butter. Once it's melted, then you add 2 cups of milk, a half a cup at a time, and it thickens because you're making a roux. And then you add 2 cups of shredded cheese, and so I used aged cheddar. You're supposed to use cheddar. And so I'm pretty sure that I'm having a reaction to the aged cheese. And so I made a lot of it, so I was eating like a little bit at dinner for a couple of nights. And so since I finished the macaroni, I've been better. So that mystery was kind of solved. But while I'm sleeping, it's just like, while I'm having the aura, I'm really sensitive to everything. And so I don't sleep that well, so that too. This guy's pushing me. So that was also adding to me not sleeping well. We're gonna soup this thing up. This might not. Oh, good. There's a break in the fence. But I've also been working on a lot of Astro Photography stuff. So I've talked a little bit about it in the last stream, but I have a SkyGuider Pro, and it's just like this part you attach to a tripod, and then you align it with the North Star if you're in the northern hemisphere. And you know, the planet's rotating, so the stars, you know, stars don't rotate, but the planet does. And so if you want to take a really long exposure, you have to track the stars. And so the SkyGuider is kind of a simple thing where it rotates and counteracts the rotation of the Earth. So you can take like a photo for, 50 seconds, 5 minutes, and then
if you ever fancy a change, you can call in at the hub. Change your car and I'll sign you up for a new championship.
This is the place for all your car upgrading needs, whether that be
and so you can do longer photos. But what I do is I stack, doing image stacking. So I'll take a 6-second photo where the shutter's open for 6 seconds, but I do that for an hour, so it takes like 2,000 photos.
Yeah, I get it. You want to spend as much time as possible out on the road. Let me do all the tinkering for you in here. Just choose a performance class and we'll do the rest.
And so doing that, and then on the computer combines all those images together, and it creates a really high fidelity image, or it removes a lot of the noise and essentially picks the strongest pixels that there are. So you get really detailed photographs of the sky. And so doing it that way, yes, they're 6-second photos, but I'm doing it for hour and a half. And so they say that's a combined time of an hour and a half exposure. So what's nice about that is I live in Michigan, so there are a ton of clouds. It can be completely clear, and then a cloud will pop out of nowhere, or a huge cloud layer will come. And so when I'm taking, the 2,000 photos, I look at them in Lightroom and it's like, oh, a plane flew by here. Don't use that photo. And then, oh, it's too cloudy on this section, these 4 photographs. And then don't use that one. Where if I was doing an hour-long exposure, I wouldn't have that ability to cut out what I wanted, what I don't want. So I did that. So I took, I used 3 cameras, and I took pictures of 4 constellations. I did Orion, Ursa Major, Gemini, and I did it at different focal lengths. So I did one at 500 millimeters, which is a pretty long lens. It's actually a special lens I'm going to talk about later. But I did that, and I actually had a little bit of technical difficulties with that one. And then I did 28 millimeters, which is pretty wide angle. And then I did 200 millimeters with a different lens. So what's nice about the SkyGuider is the SkyGuider Pro is if you balance it right and have kind of 2 medium-sized cameras, you can mount 2 cameras to the same tripod mount and have it rotate. And so that's what I do. And then I have one more mount that I attach the bigger lenses to with the camera. So So each constellation I take 3 sets of photos. Kind of the wide angle, the medium, and then the super telephoto. And so it ended up, you have to take them in RAW. So they're huge file types, and like I said, for each constellation, there's about 1,500 images. And then I use a program called, I think it's Deep Sky Tracker. No, that's not it. It's Deep Sky Stacker or something. But it takes all those photos, all those raw files, and then it looks at all the stars, and then it aligns each photo so they're all perfectly lined up. And it's pretty easy for it because I'm using the... I did the wrong gear. Because I am tracking the sky, so even though the Earth's rotating and it rotates a lot in an hour, the lenses are following the stars. And so it takes like the 1,000 photos. I've discarded the ones I don't like, and then it combines them together and makes a really low noise, high resolution image. But it takes forever. It takes like a day. Well, not a day. It took 5 days to process the 12 constellations, because it was 3, like I said, it was 3 cameras for 4 different constellations.
Alright, you just earned yourself a green wristband.
I got a green wristband. But yeah, so it took 5 days of processing on a hefty computer. And then it took about 700 gigabytes of raw files that had to be combined into one image. So that was a lot of work. And then you actually need a separate disk. If you have enough space on your internal hard drive, you might not need it. But to do the process, a lot of times you would need 200 or 150 gigabytes, where it had to use for temporary files as it's combining them. So it's like, it takes a lot.
In 400 yards, turn left.
I'll be right back. Okay. So going back to the, I haven't been saying I've been busy. Going to the different parks, I've been droning. So I have a lot of new footage. I'm taking photos as I drone as well. It is quite a time to be alive. I built my own drone. Well, I've been doing fixed wing, which is like remote control airplanes, and then droning, but both of them are kind of large because they have to carry, a gimbal and gimbal and camera that are pretty heavy. But the quadcopter, which when people talk about drones, that's usually what they're talking about. The propellers are like 9-inch propellers, so it's pretty big. And every time, like if I need a part for it, sometimes I go to the hobby store and they're like, we don't have anything that big. But so it's difficult to get parts for it. I mean, it's easy with Amazon and eBay, but not locally. But the drone I built, it's a DJI F450. And it's scary to fly. It's one of those home-built ones, kits that you get. And it's not that it's the kit that's scary. It's that I'm always worried about losing signal and transmitter. And I might get a new transmitter and stuff, but I have a Turnigy transmitter, which is an inexpensive $100 one, but there's a lot of settings you can have to make it programmable. But I have a FlySky module, which uses a different, transmitter than the original one. And so the whole reason why I got this one module is because it has extended range, reliability, and stuff. And so that was all good. And then I got a receiver, which the transmitter sends the signal to the drone. And the receiver is the part on the drone that, accepts the signal and does what the controller tells it to do. And, I upgraded this car and I feel like it's not doing as well as it normally would. A lot of that is because if you upgrade it, I think it puts you in a different class of drivers. You also have similar upgrades. But going back to the drone, so I did that. I got it's like this little chip that goes on the back of the transmitter. And then FlySky patched an update where, oh no, this isn't good. This isn't good. I'm just chatting along. Minding my own business, I was about to lose the race. And so yeah, they made an update so that before there were like knockoff companies that were compatible, but they made an update where only their new things are compatible. The new receivers are compatible with their newer transmitters. And so because of that, even their older transmitters don't work with their newer transmitters either. So not only did they nuke the competitors, they nuked themselves with their older transmitters. So I was like, So now I have like two transmitters that were kind of, they're medium range. They were like $80 or $90. Not transmitters, receivers. And I got them for being like super reliable. So that was annoying. But so I'm always kind of weary when I fly it, for interference and stuff. The flight controller I use for the drone is kind of, you have to like plug it into the computer to program it and everything. It's APM model. And so it's a Adreno Pilot. And it works well like 90% of the time, except for like one thing. and that's like just holding this position. Like I can have it do an altitude hold, and that works well, or I can fly it manually with no autopilot. But so it was always scary. It's a big setup. I have to go to the park usually early in the morning when no one's there. And like I said, when I'm flying it, there's so much electromagnetic, fields from its own motors that getting the antenna placement was always difficult. And so I've always had signal problems. And so like I said, they updated the... Did I just do this race? I think I did. And so like I said, because of the upgrades, I can't use the new receivers, and I can only use the older receivers in kind of an older protocol for transmitting. So I actually bit the bullet, and then I got a DJI drone. I have the ARS2, the Air 2S. The reason why I got that one is because I needed a drone that does 60 frames per second, and I wanted it to do 4K at 60 frames per second. Now I'm not planning on releasing the videos that I do with it in 4K at 60 frames, but I do plan on releasing it kind of slowed down to 30 frames. So because it's 60 frames, slowing it down to 30 frames, it's just remapping the frames, and so that's about 2 times slow motion. So if I take a video that's 1 minute long, when it's converted to 30 frames per second, it will be 2 minutes long. I have no idea where I'm supposed to be going. I just barely made that. I completely lost the line of the track. And so the reason why I do that is so I can fly. It's mainly for audiobooks that I do the droning for. So the visual audiobooks and everything that have to do with aviation and things like that, both fiction and non-fiction. And so I need, these videos, I need to do like 5 or 6 hours of footage. And so with the drone, each battery I only get like 20 minutes of flight time. So using that slow motion method. I don't have to go out to the park as much to get footage. I still have to do a lot, but it's not as hard.
You have arrived at your destination.
And so before, with my homemade drone, I would do HD at 120 frames per second, and so that's 4 times slow motion.
Okay, you've done really well. You just need to win this next race and the championship is
And so if I record a minute of footage, then that's 4 minutes once it's converted. So that was slow, but it was a little too slow. But the main reason why I did it that slow was because for my first drone, it was a $80 Bugs 3 drone, and so it could barely handle a GoPro. And so I did it at 120 frames because there was no gimbal, there's no stabilization. And so because it was so slow, what would seem like a jerky movement of it auto-correcting to be a level would actually be kind of slower. It'd still be kind of wobbly, but it wouldn't be as jarring as if I did it in real time. But shooting with the DJI drone, the Air 2S, it's like, it's incredible. Like, there are so many things I've had to do, like in terms of like having to develop skills and practice, and it's just like the kids today have no idea how easy flying that drone is compared to flying something more manual. I mean, which is good. I'm not saying the manual way is better, because with this one, I don't have peace of mind, but I do trust it a little bit more. I never fly it outside of my sight, so I can always see it where I'm flying, and then call that line of sight, which is what you're supposed to do. Unless you have like a professional drone license. I just have a recreational drone license and safety test. But yeah, so I'll like fly it maybe 400 feet away, and I can still eyeball it. And so I know if it's going to run into a tree, I know if it's out in the open. But like this drone has like, it's called like an advanced safety system. And if you get too close to like, let's say a tree or a building, it will tell you, hey, there's something right next to me, and it will light up and say there's something too close on the left on the screen, or there's something too close behind. And it's like really reliable. And so the safety features and stuff and everything is incredible. The only thing I don't really like is that you can't land it. It has to land itself. So you bring it close to the ground and then you push a button and say land, and it lands, and that's good. And then it takes off by itself. You press take off and then it hovers. But the reason why the landing annoys me a little bit is because I have an adapter where I can put a VR camera on it. And so if you tell it to land, it would squish the camera because it's hanging underneath it. And so if you want to, the other thing you can do is you can have it land and you catch it, but it won't do that because it says, hey, there's an object right next to me. I'm going to scoot away from it so not to hit it, so you can't really reach it and stuff. And so with the 360 camera mounted to it, what I do is like I'll grab the camera as it's hovering, but it's trying to fly away, and then I turn it off, and then it turns off. But it's like it really strains the motor, and so I haven't figured out a good way to get it to turn off some of the safety features. Like I've turned it off. I've tried turning off, the avoidance system, and so yeah, it avoids things when you're flying, but it still, when it's trying to land, it still tries to avoid things and stuff. But for the past week, I've just been flying, taking regular videos with the gimbal, and that gimbal is it is a dream. There's like no vibrations. It's really easy to control. It's just like the kids today have no idea how hard droning used to be, even with the earlier DJI stuff. And then this thing is, collapsible. I have a small photography bag that I got from Salvation Army, and it fits in there, and I have 6 batteries. That all fits, and the controller. And it's just like, I have all this that fits in a bag that I can throw over my shoulder, versus my other drone where I need a giant hard case. Like, it's the case I have for the other drone, it's essentially like a storage bin, like that kind of size.
Hey, you're back. Looking for a new car for the next leg of the road trip?
I'm gonna try and get a Mini Cooper, I think.
Okay, that was good, and well done to all of our winners.
Okay, I'll be right back. It will be quicker this time. Okay, I'm back.
Now the next leg of this road trip takes us to San Giovanni. And remember, this isn't a race. These are some of the best driving roads in the world. Make the most of them.
In 400 yards, turn right.
So early in February,
Turn right.
I have we're doing the return
Right.
of the magazine that I used to do with the Master of Art Monthly. And so the January issue, I'm trying to have it come out in February, the beginning of February, and it's going to be kind of like a photography diary of all the stuff I did in January. So I'm going to put the drone photos, the Astro Photography that I've been doing, and then
Take the first
I have some wildlife photos as well. So January was a busy month. And then I'm also going to put in some tutorials. And then throughout the month of February, I'll be releasing more videos of the things that I've animated and everything. And we also have the Alaska Lost Photographs. And so I'm going to put a couple articles in there about Alaska and show off those photographs. But I'm going to be releasing it on the Amazon Kindle platform.
bear right.
And then I am going to release a
Keep right.
iBooks
Recalculating route.
an iBooks version for the Apple iPad and phone. And the iBooks version will let me put in videos and embedded links and things like that. So it's more interactive. I'm pretty sure you can't put videos in the Kindle editions, Kindle books. So the iBooks one will have that. And then I'm going to do a limited print version. And then I haven't figured out where I'm going to sell it.
At the roundabout, take the second exit.
I haven't decided if it's going to be like eBay or Etsy. Yeah. Yeah, so it's gonna be a busy couple of weeks.
In 400 yards,
Not a couple of weeks,
turn
a
right.
busy week coming up.
Turn right. In 100 yards, turn left. In 400 yards, turn right. Turn right. In 400 yards, turn left. Turn left.
I despise. Oh no, that's not the turn. There's one turn I despise. And I can never make it.
To the Hot Hatch Championship. We always get good races in this bracket because the smaller cars have that little more chance of a sneaky undertake on the last corner. Go on, pick a
Snooky.
race to start the championship.
Let's upgrade this thing.
Alright, so what are we doing to your ride today?
What? I don't have enough credits. I gotta go make more bucks.
In 200 yards, turn right. Turn right.
I kind of teased it earlier, but I was saying I have this 500mm lens, and it's an unusual one. And so the reason why it's unusual is because it's a mirror lens. So instead of using lenses to create the magnification, it uses two mirrors, just like you would see in a telescope, a Newtonian telescope. and it uses that to achieve the 500 millimeters. And I've always wanted to test this out. They were always really inexpensive. I got mine for $80. It was an open box one on eBay. And if you look them up online, it's like a generic lens. Kind of affordable lens companies have their own models and stuff, but they're all essentially the same. And so I got it out, but if you look online on the reviews, everyone says, oh, it's so unusual, and then a lot of photographers won't commit to recommending it, but they'll say, you know, like, oh, it definitely has its own style, but I'm not saying you should get it, but if you do, you might like it. It's completely up to you. So I always thought that was weird that everyone was not committing to saying it's good, but then they show their photos that they take with it, and they're pretty good. But the issue that a lot of photographers have is the broke, which is a whole nother story. But so the backgrounds and stuff that are out of focus, instead of being blurry in like kind of normal uniform way, like you would get with a lens that uses refracted glass, with the mirrored one, the out of focus areas are kind of creates little donut holes, because the way the mirror works is it's a mirror that's closest to the camera, and then there's another mirror that's on the tip of the lens, and so the camera actually looks through a hole in the primary mirror, and that's how it sees out. And so because there's a hole that it focuses around, that's why the out of focus spots have kind of that ring shape. So a lot of photographers hate that, and others don't care, and I don't care about that. But it only happens in certain situations. So it's like if the part that's out of focus is in the background and it's super bright, then you get the rings. But if it's kind of a dull, darker background, you don't see the rings so much. And so it is really good for wildlife photography. Yesterday I did do some photos of some geese, and for it being 500 millimeters, I was maybe 400 feet away from them, and it was on the images, it was close to, it wasn't like their full body took up the frame, but they took up maybe their feet would be like from the bottom of the frame to their head being the top of the frame. So that was nice. And then, oh my goodness, another thing the kids today don't understand is, like, back in my day, you had to actually look to see if things were in focus. Now this lens is fully manual. There's no electronics on it. You have one f-stop, and that's 6.3 or something. And but I was kind of, Canon and everyone, they're all leaving the mirror system, which I used to like the mirror system, because you would actually see through the lens and you could focus that way. But as I've gotten older, it's become more difficult for me to see clearly, so it's harder to focus through the lens. And so now I have the R10, and so it has the focus assist, which was something usually my video cameras had. And so for things that are sharp and contrasty, the camera will highlight them in blue. And so if it's just, sharp and detailed and it's highlighted in blue, that means there's a probability that that's an area that's in focus. Now, it's not always 100% true, but it's something that, is usually true. You can have something that's sharp and contrasty and it's out of focus, but it looks like, jagged lines, which would kind of indicate that it's focused when it's really not. So you do still have to look at the image and judge it, but and so with that feature in the camera and this lens, instead of it being such a hard lens to focus, because like I said, it's 500 millimeters and with an aperture of 6. And for a telephoto lens, that's quite low. I mean, a lot of times you hear with lenses like, oh, you need an aperture of 1.2 or 2.8 to be any good. But once you get to a certain distance, with affordable lenses, you get to like the best aperture you can get is 8. An f-stop of 8. And so the depth of field of something that's in focus versus out of focus, it's like 2 inches. So if you're focused on the wrong thing, you can be off by 2 inches and it will look very out of focus. And so only a sliver of things are in focus. But with the focus assist on the Canon and stuff, with the highlights and peaking, it's really easy to figure out when you're in focus. And so if I had an earlier camera that was just through the lens, it would be a lot more difficult to focus this. Focus this camera, but it's turned out not to be, so I was quite lucky. I was quite lucky. But yeah, so that's the lens I'm using for wildlife and for Astro Photography. Kind of went wild over there. But for the Astro Photography, even though you're taking photos of the stars, which is like the farthest possible thing, it's still a little difficult to get them in focus. And just because the lens is so sensitive, but I was able to do it. But when I was doing the image stacking, it turned out that the camera was, the mount was a little wobbly, so there's a lot of streaking on the stars, so that was unfortunate. But the next time I do it, I'll take better photos. And then when I stack them, it will be better.
In 400 yards, turn right. Turn right.
So that's kind of all the topics I wanted to cover today. We'll do this one race and that'll be it. But I finally got a call from my GI doctor. It's a new doctor, and so I got a referral. It's funny because it's taken over a year to get this referral. And like a lot of the doctor I see for insurance was like, you don't need it, just do this. So we've been trying a lot of things before I got the referral, and I finally got it, which is a little annoying because I've been saying I should see a GI doctor for a while. But I got the appointment and I called, and the receptionist was like a really nice lady, but she was like, "Oh, we've been calling you," and I was like, "Yeah, I've called back, but your office was closed and got busy." But she's like, "Okay, I can book you in March." And I was like, "March?" I didn't say that, but I was like, "Oh, okay." And so right now we're in January, if you're watching this video later. So it's not even February, so I have to get through February. But I am doing better, but I still have a lot of problems with my GI tract. But I'm also taking a huge amount of medical stuff for my GI tract. So I'm hoping that after I see this doctor, we can get more answers, and then maybe you can come up with either like a dietary solution or figure out what's going on. Because like right now, I have to take 4 cups of Miralax, and then I have to do other stuff, and I'm still blocked. I can get some movement, but it's very difficult. So, but like I said, I was in a horrific shape in November where I was like passing out. It was really painful. I couldn't stand up for a long time, and I thought it was like a back pain or hernia, but since doing all this medicated stuff, it's gotten better, but it's still there. But it's just not painful. So that is nice. And I'm able to sit up for longer and everything.
You've earned a skill point.
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming out. I'll be live next week. Yeah, next week. I'll try to be live either Saturday or Sunday. This coming Saturday or Sunday. But yeah, I'll release this on the podcast and YouTube. Bye-bye.